This is the Sales Bible Podcast, episode 232, Why You Need a Killer Business Plan. An interview with Peter Mayhead.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. And have you ever heard the quote that you should plan for the worst but hope for the best? Well, today we're not going to talk about hope. No, instead we're going to talk about planning. Our guest is Peter Mayhead. He is the CEO of Custom Business Planning Solutions, and he's the author of the book, Killer Business Plan. And Peter talks about how it's important that you have a strategic plan and that you somehow build your business into a machine. Because he believes the skills that makes for a great entrepreneur aren't necessarily the skills of a great CEO. So that's why today we're going to discover what sellers can do. We're going to focus on sales managers and sales professionals, what kinds of things they can do to help navigate a business to success through planning. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Peter. Are you ready to babble?
Oh, man, am I ever ready?
Peter, you and I met a couple weeks ago on LinkedIn. You're a business planning expert, and I used to work for a business planning software tool company, and we were promoting it and doing a lot of prospecting. So I saw that. I'm like, oh, this might be a terrific topic for the Sales Babble audience. Why are business plans important?
Business plans are important because you've got to see where you're going. If you don't visualize where you're heading and you don't make some kind of backward plan of here's the steps I've got to go to reach it, then how do you know when you got to where you were trying to go? And people are pretty action oriented now, and they don't want to really get pulled down the details. And I feel them. I understand it, but you've got to have a clear idea where you're headed, because if you don't, then any road will take you there and you're going to end up in the middle of nowhere. So you've got to take some time to figure out what you're doing.
I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see over and over and over when I'm working with clients is that they got this passion about this thing that they're about. It's like what you said. They're all about taking action. But turning it into a business, they've got no idea what to do.
Well, Jeffrey Moore, we talked about this book, wrote a book called Crossing the Chasm. And the Crossing the Chasm, there's 2 or 3 different pieces. He did another book called Living on the Fault Line, which was kind of a different take of Crossing the Chasm. And basically, one of the things that he said, because I got to see him speak in a room of like 30 people.
Well, he's been a guest on Sales Babble, by the way.
Oh, man, good for you. So here's the deal.
Great guy.
That's pretty impressive, actually. Anyway, he said the skills that an entrepreneur has are not the skills that need to be in a company to grow it larger, to scale it. Because entrepreneur is all about getting things done in a very short time frame and looking at really immediate benefits, where professional management that's organized and planned are what's going to raise a company up. Because essentially a company is a machine that puts your product out there, collects revenue from your customer, delivers the product to your customer, and then deals with any issues that your customer has with your product. It's a machine. And if you don't look at it like you're building a machine with parts and things that have to go together and move, you're going to just be handling everything ad hoc. You're going to be reactive. You're going to be responding instead of getting out ahead of it. And so that's why I tell people they got to plan. And it doesn't have to be a big ordeal where you're writing a formal business plan that's going to sit on a credenza and gather dust. It could be something as simple as a bunch of index cards that you're moving around between different poster boards just to make sure you keep yourself organized. And so my whole visualization and kind of how I feel about business plans has evolved over the 14 years I've been doing them. My thing is I'm more worried about you understanding where you want to go and what you got to do to get there than whether you produce a formal document or something that somebody's going to look at and say, wow, you're really organized. Because it's about learning the discipline of what a business is and the discipline that you've got to have to carry it out.
The business plans I've often seen really have been lots of details. And and interestingly enough, often the numbers that are pulled out of the air turn out not to be true at all. But with that said, I have worked with people who have opened up businesses. I remember very, very clearly This one lady I was working with, she had a passion for opening a bookstore. Opened the bookstore, filled it all in with books and everything, and then had very few hours open. Really wasn't sure what the right price to charge for the books. All of that, and within 6 months, it was closed.
Yes, and why do you think that is? Well, Pat, why do you think that happened to her?
I remember talking to her about, well, let's just calculate the hours here. Like, how many books would you have to sell an hour, and how many hours would you have to be open? Just kind of a back of the envelope kind of like numbers. And it was pretty clear this was never going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, capacity. See, that's the thing. That's where we start too. We always start with sizing the business financially. But before we even do that, who's the customer? Who's going to buy? Why do they care? And especially with a brick and mortar, are you in the 1-3-5 mile demographic bullseye you need to be for the people who are going to buy from you? But most people, especially people who are coming out of corporate jobs, and they say, how hard can it be to start a company? I don't know. Go bankrupt hard, lose your house hard, have all your friends, have your wife divorce you hard. That's how hard it can be, because you didn't figure out who's going to buy and why are they going to buy. Because the thing that I learned early on in this business that made me feel really sad is it's not about me. It's never about me. It's about them. It's about the customer. It's about what they want. It's about what's in it for them. All of the slogans and cliches you've heard, I'm sorry, they're all true. And if you take the time to figure out who they are and what they want, they will reward you. And if you don't, they won't.
That's that old Zig Ziglar quote, right? If you give people everything they want, you can have everything. If you give everything they need, you can have everything you want. Something along those lines.
Exactly. I can almost remember that quote. Almost. I'm working on it. The quote I like to do is the opposite corollary. If you're selling to everyone and anyone, you're selling to no one.
I've had experts disagree with that, but I think it's totally true.
Well, you know what? They can be wrong. I mean, it's a free country. But what I found is at the end of the day, you're cold, you're tired, you're hungry, you're walking around, and a sign that says restaurant. Yeah, that one time you'll eat anything. You'll eat Hungarian borscht because you're dying. Okay, but that's that one time. For repeat customers that are going to come back, they're going to become raving fans. They're going to tell people to buy at your place. They're going to bring people to your place or to your website or whatever you're selling. You got to pretty much target them and speak to them in their language and in words they want to hear that reflects their values and what they're about. Or, it's not going to happen, because I know the people who say that, by the way, the people who say, oh, yeah, it doesn't really matter. You know what? They're all in the app space. If you want to meet these people who are like, Edwards Deming used to talk about people when he was trying to fix them in Japan after the war.
He was the quality guy. He was the quality metrics guy.
Yep. W. Edwards Deming. And I worked with, I didn't work with, but I had occasion to spend time with Marshall Thurber, who is his partner. And he said he would have a meeting with them and they would be all optimistic about doing the stuff that was crazy. And as they walked out of the conference room, he'd go, there goes my children. There they go into the world. Who will look after them? How will they survive? You have to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, even if it's the bare bones, just skeleton of a plan, it's better than no plan at all.
So let's give some actionable advice here to some, let's say if you're a founder of a business, let's say you're a sales manager working for a company that's floundering. Because I have been there. And you're wondering, and who knows how much influence you have or you don't have. What should companies be doing in order to, what do you recommend companies to do?
Well, let's qualify that. How big of a company are we talking about?
I don't know. Let's say you've got, that's a good question. Let's say you got $4 or $5 million worth of revenue.
Okay.
And you're flat.
Yes. Okay, I can speak from experience in this area. And what I would tell, the thing that we did that helped us recover was to take a look at our products and make sure how relevant they were to the market we were selling to currently. And then where can our products be relevant to a market we're not in? And so the market, this was a fiber optic transceiver company, so really kind of a specialized piece of gear. But we were trying like heck because we thought that high definition television was going to be around in 1989 instead of 2005. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were aiming at broadcast television, and we were making all these fiber optic links to connect all these cameras up. And we never looked at space. We never looked at all the stuff that's going on in space where the fiber optic connection, to use that as a bus to send stuff from a satellite, for example, could be really good. And so our marketing group went out and started talking to different people. We talked to Harris Corporation and NASA and people like that. And our little $4.5 million company, its gear is flying on the space station because they looked at our stuff and they go, wow, we never thought about doing this back bus fiber optic. Look how quick it is. And the next thing we knew, we had this contract. We're working with Teledyne, and we got launched, and the stuff's flying in space. So the thing that I would say is, if you're completely flat, that would signal that you are either the market is at saturation, or the market is pulling away from you. So if the market's pulling away from you, or you're sitting at saturation, then you've got to look at a new market, because it's not likely to get better unless there's an economic reason, like somebody put a tariff in your market, or the economy dropped like it did in '08, and then you can say, well, now I got to just ride this out because it's probably not good. Well, you still got to go look for other markets. I'm sorry, even if you're in that situation. So if you're sitting flat and stagnant and everything had worked before, either your product is being supplanted by a better product, the market's moving away from you because of changes in how things are done or technology, or for some reason people just don't like your product anymore. And now you've got to find a new pasture to farm, a new blue ocean to drop your stuff into and try to generate sales.
And how do we leverage business plans for this process?
Well, a marketing plan is a subset of a business plan. And when I've worked with large companies doing business plans, and I've worked with some pretty large companies. I was involved in a $997 million nursing home roll-up. And when I involved them, the marketing plan literally was the biggest section of the business plan. It was bigger than the financials. It was bigger than anything else, because there was a piece of what their business was. And this is all businesses, by the way. This is not a large company. This is a coffee shop, has the same components. There's a piece of it that's a relationship piece, where you've got to go meet the right people so that they recommend you, that they feature you, that they promote you, so you get their approval and approbation so that they are comfortable with saying, hey, these guys are good guys. You have a part which is an actual kind of cold marketing part where you're actually going out and advertising, and you're going out and you're doing traditional advertising, whatever that is for your industry, whether it's trade shows or magazines or billboards or television, whatever that is. You've got the social media piece, which you cannot ignore. And then you've got the actual just, figuring it out, the analytics, analyzing it, and all that stuff. So all those components have got to be planned out. And it's different for every company, and it's different for every product. And so the most important thing is that you understand that and you do it, so that you've got, and here's the other thing too, test. Go test things.
Right.
Go do tests. Don't go all in and it's going to work. Carve a little piece out, test. See how the test goes. If it does, lather, rinse, repeat, just keep going until you build it up and scale it. That's the real secret. And that's the only thing, in my opinion, that came out of the whole agile as kind of how to run a business movement for startups. That idea of testing is invaluable. You got to do it.
Reminds me of Ronald Reagan's quote, trust but verify.
Trust but verify, that's right. Because you don't know what you don't know. You could be really, really good, but even really, really good people have bad days. You got to test.
What do you think of the business model canvas model? Yeah, maybe you could explain, you know what that is, right? You could explain that to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm in Orange County, and there's a big startup community in Orange County around medical device and tech and internet and coding. And so because these kids that come out of school, or sometimes still in school, they're all focused on writing their Python and PHP code and doing all that stuff. And so their mentors say, hey, look, here's this startup canvas, which is one piece of paper that's broken up, I think, into 6 or 7 blocks, and it has different elements of the business. And then, what is your value proposition, and who is your customer? And they start writing stuff in there, right? And that's good, because it's like, I guess if you're lost in the woods, it's better to start dead reckoning by the stars than droning around in the dark. But it's not the same as having a compass. It's not the same as having a map. It's not the same as having enough water. It's not the same as having enough food. So if I look at it, what the startup canvas is, it's a very pale imitation of a business plan. And I think it makes people feel good because, well, I thought about it, so I don't have to deal with it. What happens when people try to run off the startup canvas is when they get in front of investors or they get in front of banks or friends and family and they're actually trying to raise money, they can't answer the questions that need to be answered because at the end of the day, a business is what? It's a machine. What are all the parts of the machine? How do they fit together? What's the flow of the money through the machine? What's the flow of the product through the machine? So it's like, if you don't know that, at least on some level that's sort of elemental, you're not going to be able to communicate it to people. So do I like the startup canvas as a starting point? I think it's a great starting point, and it's better than doing nothing. But is it a substitute for you actually sitting there and figuring out the steps so you can explain them logically? Because let's think about it. Who's going to write a check? They're going to write a check because you give me the money and I'll figure it out? Or are they going to write a check to somebody and say, I need A, B, C, D, E, and F, and each step costs this much money? I mean, the answer is clear. They're going to give the money to the person who knows what they're doing.
That's exactly how I see the business model canvas. And it's just a starting point, just as some structure. Each one of those things could be you could go very, very deep. Like we had Lisa Dennis on the podcast just a few weeks ago, and we talked at length on just the value proposition. And we could have talked for 2 more hours.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that's the whole idea. And that's what I like about it, is it's a starting point to introduce these subjects where you've got to think beyond doing your code or putting together your medical device or your robotics or starting your coffee shop or running your weld truck into what is it, what are all these elements and how do they all fit together? Because at the end of the day, unless you want to be a solopreneur for your entire life, the only way that you really make money in this world is by employing other people. Because let's face it, only 3 to 5% of the whole world are people who are going to be entrepreneurs. That's just statistically the way it is. So everybody else is going to work for somebody else. And the way that you grow wealth is you are able to employ other people so you can expand and duplicate and triplicate your ability to deliver product and make money. So if you don't understand how to plan things and structure things and understand about process, which nobody wants to talk about anymore, which is a bummer, you're not going to scale. It's not going to happen for you.
Very good. Peter, how can people find you online? How can they find Custom BPS?
Well, how they can find us is they can go to www.custombpsboypaulsam.com, and that's our website, and we've got a presence out there, explains what we do. We also have a book called Killer Business Plan, and Killer Business Plan is a 3-part book. First part is entrepreneur right for me? What kind of business would I choose? The second part is, and literally it's a hybrid book, so you can go online and there are models, templates, videos of how to do stuff that are in the book. You can download those templates offline and use them. But we've got a model. You can figure out what any business will do within like 5 minutes. So you can test any business idea really quickly and see if it's going to make the money you need. And then third is a step-by-step, very practical book. It's not a motivational book. It's a very practical book. Yeah, I'm assuming you're motivated, okay, to teach you how to do it, right? So that you can write a bank-grade business plan on your own. Because if you can do that, then you can start a business, you can run a business because you'll understand what's in the business. And by the way, one of the things I wanted to do for your listeners is if they will send me an email at pmehit@custombps.com, I will send them an electronic copy of the book for free.
Excellent. Excellent. And for all you driving out there, I'll make sure and type that up so you can find that in the show notes and you can keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah, there you go. Because entrepreneurs who crash and die don't make money.
If you could give our listeners one piece of advice, Peter, that they go and take action on today, and I'm thinking like sales managers, sales professionals, what would that be?
Take some time and in your mind, clearly visualize who it is that you're selling to. I mean, really take some time and close your eyes and really try to think about who it is you're trying to sell to and what it is that they're about. And it's something that needs to be done every week, every couple of weeks. Keep going back to that. Keep going back to that wellspring. Am I talking to the right person? Am I doing the right things? Because unless you're checking yourself, you're wrecking yourself. So keep asking that question.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, Peter, for coming here to Sales Babble. This has been a ton of fun.
You know what? I enjoyed babbling, and clearly I did quite a bit of it. And so this is the place for me, and I really appreciate it, Pat. It was wonderful to be on.
I really like Peter's advice that if the things are going flat, if your sales are flat, you're not really certain what to do, answer the question, what is the relevance of your product in the markets that you're serving now? And you may find that you don't really understand that and that it's no longer necessary. But then you ask the flip question, what markets could your product be relevant in? Because that could create huge possibility, huge opportunity. And the third thing I really liked that he spoke about was the importance of understanding who are you serving? What is the market that you're really all about? To connect with Peter, you can find the links to him on his LinkedIn and his website at Custom BPS, as well as the business planning processes and downloads that he mentioned. You can find all of those in the show notes at salesbabble.com. I also can put links there to the Jeff Moore interview that I did from Crossing the Chasm. Really, really interesting. I think I did that interview maybe 3.5 years ago. It was a lot, but it's still extremely relevant. And of course, we mentioned Lisa Dennis too on value propositions. All of that stuff you can find in the show notes. And while you're at the website at salesbabble.com, you can find our entire back catalog, and it's all broken out by category. If you want to know how to learn how to do a presentation, if you want to learn how to close, you want to learn how to qualify, all of that stuff is in there. Don't hesitate to look in there. Great content that can help you in your business. If you got a question, you got a comment, don't hesitate to reach out to Pat. Find me on LinkedIn. Find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. And, of course, you can email me, too, at pathelmers@salesbabble.com. That's all I got for this week. Until next, take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.